Greetings from Witness Protection, a first chapter Friday read aloud video with the Word Nerd and author interview with Jake Burt. Also, a quick reminder that I have lots of student engagement worksheets for you on Teachers Pay Teachers. Just head to the link in the description box to find many of these amazing graphic organizers and ways to keep your students involved while listening to the video. One last thing before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to Mrs. Ninehouse's 7th and 8th grade students at Albany Middle School in Albany, Wisconsin. I'm so glad you guys are here for this first Chapter Friday video, and I hope you enjoy Greetings from Witness Protection and the interview with author Jake Burt. Hi, my name is Amanda Zieba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week I'm going to be reading to you from Greetings from Witness Protection by Jake Burt. Make sure you stay to the end because we're going to have a chance to talk with Jake and ask him all sorts of questions about this book. I can tell you that I loved it, and as I was reading it, I was actually thinking about some other books that it reminded me of. So, real quick, it reminded me a lot of One for the Murphys because both the main characters are girls in foster care, and it also reminded me of Alibi Junior High, which I can't find my copy of. I must have lent it out to somebody, but it's on this channel. Here's the video. I'll make sure I link it for you. But it reminds me of that because it puts the main character in kind of a dangerous spy kind of situation. And anyways, if you like Alibi Junior High, or you end up liking Witness Protection Program, you will also like the other one. So sometimes it's good to find books that are kind of like something you've read, because then you know you're going to like it. So, what is this book about? The US Marshals are looking for the perfect girl to join a mother, father, and son on the run from the nation's most notorious criminals. After all, the bad guys are searching for a family with one kid, not two. And adding a streetwise girl who knows a little something about hiding things may be just what the Marshals need. Nikki swears she can keep the Trevor family safe, but to do so, she'll have to dodge hitmen, cyberbullies, and the specter of standardized testing, all while maintaining her marshal-mandated B- average. As she barely balances the responsibilities of her new identity, Nikki learns that the biggest threats to her family's security might not lurk on the road from New York to North Carolina, but rather in her own past. I was hooked from the start, and I know that you will be too, so let's just dive right into Greetings from Witness Protection by Jake Burt. It starts off with a letter in the very beginning. It says, "Dear Dad, being an orphan sucks. 132 letters, 5 foster families, and 3 suitcases later, and I'm back at the good old center. They're thinking about naming my bed after me." That was Wainwright's joke. Ha. Ha. I'm still waiting, of course. Any day now, a bald billionaire with a heart of gold will adopt me, and a half-giant will come take me to a school for wizards. 2 simple farmers, longing for a child, will pick me up and discover I'm faster than a speeding bullet. Find out you were eaten by a rampaging rhino, which would explain a lot, and I'll hop on a peach to sail to Emerald City. Along the way, I'll learn that with great power comes great responsibility, and if you're clever enough, you can get everyone else to whitewash the fence for you. Yep, I've done my reading. Speaking of which, the library at the center got a new donation, about 100 more. I've already read 49 of them, as many as I could find that still had covers, and some that didn't. It doesn't matter to me. It's like Grandma used to say, it's what's on the inside that counts. Yeah, I know she was talking about wallets at the time, but still. Anyway, Chrissy wants to play, and I think Wainwright just realized I stole her pencil. Write back if you want, so that you're not shriveled or dead or just gone. It doesn't have to be a letter like mine. You can write anything. I'd love anything. Oh, and if you read this stuff, Warden High, I was kidding about stealing a pencil. Really? Missing you for the 133rd time. Nikki. P.S. I'm still saving all my adventures for you. Chapter 1. Kind of Home. I'm working on making a world. I've got the mountains and valleys, an ocean, and continents. It's a slow process, though, since I only use my hands. Well, my hands and a couple of tennis balls. As I work, pieces of plaster rain on me, but I don't care. I'm digging my trenches just a little deeper, carving my roads a little farther, and when I manage to break off a bigger chunk, I get new lakes and hills. Each time I name them. Lake Nikija, Mount Andrew, the Trench Bowl, There's something calming about the thwack, 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 thwack of a ball bouncing off the ceiling. The dance my hands do as I throw faster and faster until I can hardly see my fingers anymore. Fast hands. I've always got fast hands. God, Nikki, slow down. How am I supposed to do that? I can't even keep the ball going, and you're doing two at a time. I catch both balls and glance apologetically at Emmy. Takes time and practice, I offer. You'll get there. I'll get fostered again before I get there, Nikki, and I just got my own top bunk, too. Stay here as long as I have, and it'll be no sweat. I'm sorry, Nikki. I didn't mean it like that. Swinging my legs down over the edge of the bed, I drop down to the concrete. My toes instantly seek my slippers, and I cram my feet in as quickly as possible. Mid-October, and it's already 30 degrees outside. Every bit of that cold happily taking up residence in our floor. Tossing an Afghan around my shoulders for good measure, I sidle up to Emmy's bed. No worries. I was joking, Emmy. I wasn't. I stink at this. Not as bad as I stink at sticking. Sticking. That's what we call it. The lucky kids stick to their foster families. I seem to be covered in nail polish remover or something. I've been with 5, count 'em, 5 families in 5 years since Grammy died, and I've spent as much time in the center as I have in homes. It's not like I have any major horror stories to tell. Nobody hit me or starved me or touched me. Sometimes things just don't work out, and things just didn't work out for me. A couple of those did involve legal issues on my end, but the others, finances, leases running out. Heck, one of my families got deported 2 weeks after I moved in. They were all nice enough. I just didn't stick. Emmy finally tosses a tennis ball away and curls around her Minnie Mouse pillow. You going to the art course with me this morning? She mumbles into Minnie's ear. If I can finish unpacking. Yep. Wainwright's been bugging me about it. 2 weeks back and I haven't emptied my suitcase yet. Wishful thinking, I guess. I know. You haven't even taken out Fancy Paws. That'd be Ms. Fancy Paws, Miss Kitten Fluff, my sole remaining stuffed animal from a childhood menagerie. My Grammy bought me many more, Doggy the dog, Fandango, Corduroy if you please, and Sullen Mummelstein, to name a few. I can still remember Wainwright explaining to 9-year-old me that they'd gone to foster care too. I liked imagining them finding new families and kids to play with. Of course, that was before I knew about Goodwill. I guess she just got comfortable in there, I mused. Can't say I blame her. Suitcase is no kind of home for a lady, Emmy exclaims, fanning herself like a southern belle. With her blonde curls and tiny mouth, she actually looks the part. I might be if the lady is missing her left ear and has cotton leaking out of her armpits, I reply. It's true. 2.5 feet of well-loved and clumpy-haired stuffitude Fancy Paws is a few years removed from her debutante days. I shuffle over to the suitcase and gently extract her from the jumble of jeans, socks, books, and bracelets. My fingertips automatically find the velveteen patch of her belly and worry at it, carefully avoiding the holes and little rips. I remind myself to check out a book on sewing and fabric repair. Fancy Paws is long overdue for a makeover, especially now that she's retired from the thieving business. Emmy asks me if I want to get breakfast, but I'm not even dressed yet, so I let her go ahead. I clear a bit of space in the middle of my blankets for Fancy Paws and nestle her in there, then slipper slide my way across the concrete to my little closet. The chill in the air says sweaters and jackets, though for some reason the tights, long black shirt with a sequined hem and white t-shirt are whispering to me. I throw in a hoodie with big pockets and my Grammy's Swarovski crystal earrings for good measure, and then scoot out to breakfast. All the rooms in the center are off one long hallway. Wainwright has it set up so that the entire space reads like a timeline of kids' lives. At our end, where the boys' and girls' rooms are, the walls are plastered with pictures of families. Most of them are from the 1980s, when the center opened. Beneath each picture is a little brass plate that says the family's name, the kid's name, and when he or she was adopted. Down the hall, the pictures get newer and newer. The best part is looking at how stuff like clothes and haircuts has changed. You know those fringed lizards that pop out their necks of skin like gigantic umbrellas to fight predators? That's like the girls' hair in the 80s. I'm not sure who they were trying to scare, but I'm betting it worked. As the hallway goes on, the hair gets better. Toward the end, near the kitchen and the art room, are the newest pictures. Mine's not up there since I haven't stuck. Wainwright never lets us see the moment she takes our pictures down when we come back, but I've heard her sniffling in the bathroom after she does it. I think it hurts her almost as much as it hurts us. I pass by 30 years of bobs, bowl cuts, and bangs on my way to grab a bagel, and it's just as I'm turning around, bagel in my mouth and carton of milk in either hand, that I spot the guy. Or rather, The guy, with capital letters. I murmur a whoa right past the pumpernickel between my teeth. The guy is one of those who goes about 6'6" but seems 10 feet tall. You can fit 4 kids comfortably seated across his shoulders and balance a cafeteria tray perfectly atop his crew cut. He spots me and reaches up to slide his sunglasses a centimeter down his big oxygen vacuum of a nose so he can size me up. It takes him all of a second. He makes me nervous. He's wearing a black short-sleeved polo shirt despite the cold, and has got a star, like a sheriff's badge, sewn right into it. Black belt, black pants, black shoes. Looks all uniformy. What's more, hooked to his belt is a holster. Conspicuously jutting from the leather is a blocky plastic handle, as yellow and black as the business end of a hornet. It's smaller than a gun, but still big enough that I can read the word taser along the side. All people in uniforms make me twitchy, but especially armed ones, and my fingers get to tapping on my milk carton, my toes curling in my slippers. Yeah, I know I haven't done anything wrong recently, but I'm still feeling the urge well up in me. It's kind of a tightness crouched behind my heart, above my intestines and in my sinuses all at the same time. Once my left thumb starts to waggle, I know I've got to get out of here. So, speeding up around the corner and duck into the art room. The art room is tiny, with just a table and 4 chairs. Still, there's a lot of color in there. It's wallpapered in waxy, curling drawings made by kids over the years. Mr. Jordanson doesn't throw away anything. Even if it's a 3-year-old scribble-scrabble, he's taping it up to the wall. We like Mr. Jordanson because he makes us feel like Rembrandts. Seeing him and Emmy calms me a little, but I still can't stop thinking about the guy out there. He wasn't a prospective parent for sure. I set my milk and bagel down and hide my hands behind me. Oh no, Emmy whispers. She's the only one who ever notices when I'm twitching. I'll be all right, I mutter. "'Kay," she says, offering me a sympathetic smile. And something else. She's midway through a tree, and she's probably going to need her lime green crayon again any second, but she's positioned it at the edge of the table, just behind her elbow. She turns away from me for a minute, pretending to listen to what Mr. Jordanson is explaining to Hala, the center's newest arrival and resident baseball expert. Emmy's a good friend. The crayon is gone before anyone notices, and I'm holding it in my big old pocket, left thumb rubbing at the tip, which is still warm from her vigorous shading. I'm not shaking anymore. I can breathe again. "Here, Emmy. You dropped your crayon," I whisper, and she takes it back, thanking me. Have I mentioned how awesome Emmy is yet? Now that the urge has passed, it's no sweat to grab a chair from across from Hala and settle in. "Need a shade of paper, Nikki? We're doing fantasy gardens," Mr. Jordanson announces as he points to Hala's work. Hala has drawn trees coming from a ceiling and baseball bats growing out of a pot, and some sort of viney monstrosity. Art class is a joke. We basically think of something to draw as a group, then tackle it. It's silly, but it passes the time and we get to chat for a while. Right now, that's exactly what we need to do. "So," I offer casually, "anyone catch that big guy out in the hallway? He looks like a Green Beret or something." "I saw him," Emmy blurts. "I bet he's on steroids." "Alex Rodriguez did steroids," Hala adds. Yep, this is usually how our conversations go. "Let's change the subject, guys," Mr. Jordanson suggests, and he tries to talk to Hala about stippling. I scoot closer to Emmy and whisper, "So you did see him? What do you think?" "Can't be here to foster." "Did you do something?" "No." "Did you?" "No." What is he doing outside the transition room then?" "Not sure. Maybe he's a health inspector?" "Does he break your knees if we aren't up to code?" Mr. Jordanson offers, glaring at us. He goes right on glaring us, even after the second look-up. That's how you know a teacher means business. When one tells you to be quiet, you wait for 35 seconds, then look up. If the teacher isn't watching anymore, then you can start whispering again. If he's still staring at you, you best zip it. Humbled, I bite my lower lip and give Emmy one more glance, just in time to see her stick her tongue out at me. I try to suppress a giggle, but it comes out all snorty, and Emmy starts snickering. Hala joins in, and we're a mess. Even Mr. Jordanson can't stop us at the moment. But Wainwright can. She opens the door and then knocks on it in the way that grown-ups do. The old, "Hey, I'm barging in. You can't get me to go away, but it's okay because, see, I knocked." "Wonderful news," she says softly. "Nikki, dear, there are people here to see you." She always begins this announcement with "wonderful news." The But the second part she says today is different. Emmy nudges her crayon toward me and I grab for it instinctively. She noticed too. Normally, Wainwright says, there's a family that can't wait to meet you. Normally, Wainwright smiles. My chair screeches as I get up and I wince. As I start to trudge out, Mr. Jordanson says, "Congratulations, Nikki." He's trying to be cheerful, but it comes out more like a question than an exclamation. Fingering my right earring nervously, I follow Wainwright out of the room. It doesn't even occur to me to turn around and hug Emmy, or to find Chrissy one last time for a game of Uno, or to ask Hala about baseball, or to shake Mr. Jordanson's hands. It should have, though. After all, I might never see them again. All right, if you want to find out what happens next in Greetings from Witness Protection, you could totally pick up a copy from your school library, grab it from your local indie bookstore, or purchase it via the link in the description box if you can't find it anywhere else. And now, let's go talk to the author, Jake Burt. All right, readers, we are in for another treat today because we are here with the author of our First Chapter Friday book, Greetings from Witness Protection, Jake Burt. Jake, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Amanda. Great to be here.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I picked this book up because my son read it in 6th grade and he was like, "Mom, you have to do this book for First Chapter Friday." So it came highly recommended. My first question for you is that after reading your bio, I learned you're a pretty big fan of the fantasy genre. And so I'm curious what led you to write a high stakes realistic fiction book.
Great question. And you're right. I'm a huge fan of the fantasy genre. I like science fiction as well. I try to read as much in every genre that I can get my hands on, but I come back to fantasy when I'm looking for a comfort read. And when I was growing up as a kid, everything I read was fantasy, from The Hobbit to Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials series. Fantasy was sort of my lifeblood as a reader. And the first book I ever wrote, when I actually got it into my head that I was going to give this a go in a serious way, was a 584-page fantasy behemoth. It was a YA novel, and it was terrible. It was so bad, so aggressively bad, that rather than go back and try to revise it and make it worth putting into the hands of readers, I've written 7 other novels since. So part of it, I think, was just not having the chops or not trusting my own
Yeah.
abilities enough to insert myself into this genre that was so beloved to me. Like, I put fantasy authors and their stories on such a high pedestal that at first I didn't think that I could pull it off. And so, yeah. So the second couple of novels I wrote ended up being about middle schoolers, because that's who I knew, that's who I teach, and so that seemed more natural to me and came more easily, and I trusted myself more in the realistic middle grade contemporary genre. So that's where I ended up settling for the first published novel, which was Greetings from Witness Protection.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? We go back to what's familiar. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of what you knew and being around middle school kids, maybe that will come up in your answer to this question. I loved the character of Nikki slash Charlotte. She just felt so real to me. And I'm curious, how do you get there? How do you get from a figment of your imagination to this person that feels real on the page? And are there any special tips or tricks that you have for like keeping character details straight in your head, so that they stay consistent through the story?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that helped me here, and might help all authors, regardless of how they're writing the novel, is to think in the first person. This was the first novel I had ever written in first person perspective. And that really opened my eyes to what it takes to make an authentic character. And even if you're writing in third person, I've since written a couple of novels in third, I still think about scenes as though I'm writing them in first person, just to make sure that the connection with the character is there. And some of the tips and tricks, one of the sort of baseline ones is, when you think about your character in first person, they're going to be living in your head. And you're going to have conversations with them. And it's a great litmus test for whether or not you actually have a novel that you want to see from start to finish, because you'll spend 6 months writing the manuscript, but then a year and a half revising it and getting it to publication. And that's if you're already in the pipeline. If you've got to
Mm-hmm.
find an agent and find an editor and find a publishing house, you could be with this main character for a decade. Many authors
Mm-hmm.
are. And so when you force yourself to think from that character's perspective for that amount of time, you'll either fall in love with the character enough to stay with them that amount of time, or you'll decide that this novel isn't for you. You'll move on to something else. But in terms of specific tips and tricks, before you jump into penning a manuscript, it's always great to have sort of just a basic list of a few things. One of them is, what does this character want? Not minute to minute or hour to hour. What is their ultimate goal? And so, for example, for Nikki wants to belong to a family. And that desire is not going to manifest in every single scene. She'd be a pretty boring character if that's all she talked about ad nauseum throughout the book, but it informs the her interactions with characters. It informs how quick she is to trust people in authority positions, particularly in those that mimic motherhood and fatherhood. She wants that so badly, so she gravitates towards those types of people in those situations. And just having that kernel of knowledge of what she ultimately wants can really help. And then other background details, her filters for her world are the books she reads.
Mm-hmm.
She's an avid reader, and so she'll go into situations and stat them out based upon how they reflect novels that she's read. She reads a bunch of stories about other orphans and other kids in foster care, and so that colors the way she looks at her world. And so, me knowing that as her author, I can go into a situation and ask myself, within this situation, what would pique Nikki's interest? What would she notice first here based on it? Another key characteristic of hers is that she's a pickpocket. Without getting
Mm-hmm.
too spoilery, I'd say the scene where this is most evident is when she goes to an airport for the first time in her life. Lots
Mm-hmm.
of kids, when they go to an airport, oh, look at the planes, oh, look at all these different things. Nikki immediately starts identifying how easy it would be to rob people. She
Yeah.
doesn't actually, but that's her frame of reference for a large gathering of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's hopefully makes her more realistic on the page, because I'm doing the background work to make it authentic each time she enters a new situation.
Yeah, I love how you said like filters, right? Like what filter is she looking through? And that's something like with social media and Snapchat that we all like that's a mindset that we understand. And so like she's looking through at the filter of the novel or filter of her desire or the filter of books. It that I really like that. That's a concept I think kids will be able to latch onto.
Hope so.
Um, I know that writing books is only part of your job, that you also do some content writing for an educational website. It's called Learning Juice, right?
The juice learning, yeah.
The Juice Learning. Sorry. I'll make
No,
sure that I
perfect.
link that down there so that people can check that out too. But it's really interesting to me that you both write fiction and nonfiction for your job. And so I'm curious, are there any parts of your process that are the same, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, or if there's any pieces that are completely different depending on which one you're writing?
Both, yes. I'd say the part that is the same is the actual physical process with which I write. And that probably requires a little bit of explanation because my writing methodology is kind of strange. I don't sit still well. Authors generally need to be able to sit still for long periods of time, 2 hours, 3 hours. You get the notion of somebody sitting at a coffee house clacking away for hours going through their chai lattes or whatever. I can't do that. I got to move, and so I do all of my writing, fiction or nonfiction, for the novels or for the juice on an exercise bike.
That's
It's an
cool.
exercise desk. Yeah, so my legs are spinning so that I can get that nervous energy, I guess, out and concentrate on what I'm writing. So that part of the process is the same. The content is they're diametric opposites because in a novel, say in Greetings from Witness Protection, there are the biggest pieces of news, the biggest pieces of information that the reader needs, you save till the end. That's the climax. It's logical. You don't want them to know the huge payoffs, the big plot twists that are coming in the book. In the nonfiction writing that I do, those absolutely must be within the first paragraph, or I have not done my job. There's very limited room for narrative whimsy. And making that transition at first was quite difficult for me because I wanted to be all dramatic and say at the end, surprise. But the formatting of all of our stories is 250 words. That's all I get to tell a
Wow.
news story. And so that's taken a bit of adjustment for me. Fortunately,
Hmm.
there's a couple of seasoned journalists on our team that I've learned from who are phenomenal and who set me straight very quickly in all my creative madcap frenzy. Plus
Yes.
250 words will do that to you.
Right.
So yeah, so it's that difference of where you're putting the hammer, the big moment for the reader.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Okay, so but before, or maybe while you were doing some of these other things, you were also a teacher, right? I think fifth grade teachers, again, what I read on your bio, correct me if I'm wrong. But writing wasn't your first career. Are you happy that you had a different career before becoming an author? Was that helpful? Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because I think many writers are not writers as their first career, but people who love it are like, oh, I should go to school for writing. So
Mhm.
there's kind of this, I don't know, tell us a little bit about that for you.
Sure. I don't think I would be a writer if it wasn't for my teaching career. I taught for 22 years, mostly fifth grade, some sixth grade, some fourth grade. But that experience was what allowed me to understand my characters. All of my books are middle grade, and part of the reason I think I'm successful at that is not only because I hung out with fifth graders and sixth graders and seventh graders 8 hours a day for 22 years, but also because I taught them writing and I taught them reading. So I have an understanding based on my career of what kids are looking for in books. And I try to transform that into books that then kids will want to read. And there's another layer to that. I try to write books that teachers can easily teach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just again part and parcel with that career. But I drew so much inspiration from those kids that I was with year in and year out. Uh, all the little quirks, strange mannerisms kids have in the novels, those come from not kids that I'm intentionally mimicking that I knew, but
Yeah.
just this is the type of thing a kid would do in this situation, or this is the beautiful weirdness that children engage in. I try to infuse that into my novels, and I would be pretty poor at that, I think, if I hadn't had those 22 years of teaching experience.
Yeah, that is awesome. Totally agree. I taught middle school for 12 years, so I get it. 100%. My last question for you is that, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, and Nikki Charlotte is a big reader, and she uses that filter, and there are lots of characters and book names that are name dropped throughout your book, Greetings from Witness Protection. As a reader, I love that because I'm like, oh, I know that one, or I don't know that one. I better go, where did that come from? And then I go look it up. Um, what did you always know that this was going to be a part of the story, or how did that evolve? What prompted you to name drop all of these books and characters?
So that's an homage to a very specific type of student I've had throughout my teaching career. You usually get one or two in every classroom that are just bookaholics. They will read anything and everything that they get their hands on. And I've always found that particular kid's perspective on the world fascinating. This is the type of kid that, you're going out to recess and it's a beautiful day, and rather than grab a playground ball or head straight for the slide or to this tire swing or whatever, they've got a book and they just find a tree to sit under and they read it. And it's not that they're antisocial. Uh, in fact, the book is often their conduit to socialization with other kids, because other kids will come up and ask them about what they're reading, and then they spark a conversation. But that's just where they live, and that's where they're most comfortable. And so for Nikki, who is a character that is largely untethered socially, her best friend at the start of the book within the first chapter is another girl at the foster care center named Emmy. And even that character she only sees once in a blue moon, because either she's with a foster family or back at the center being sort of ping pong balled around. So Nikki needed a tether. She needed an anchor to something that would be consistent for her, because she didn't have it with family. She didn't have it with the center. She didn't have it with friends. It was books. And so that's sort of based on these other kids that I saw that were the most comfortable they could possibly be with a book in hand. And so that's Nikki. She's patterned after that particular kid that I so very much enjoyed teaching.
Awesome. Well, I love those parts of the book. So thank you for adding them. That's the end of my questions. Can you tell us real quick, what are you working on now? What are you excited about? And if a reader has another question, where would be the best place for them to reach out to you?
Sure. I'll answer that second one first. My website has a contact form. It's just jburtbooks.com, www.jburtbooks.com. They're more than welcome to fill that out. Some people think that authors have assistants and things that read their email. No, 99% of us read it ourselves. Every message that a kid sends to me on there, I will get, and I try to respond to all of them. And I enjoy doing so.
That's how I got a hold of you. So it works.
Exactly. Yep. And then the thing I'm working on right now, in addition to, I write 2 to 3 stories every day for the Juice. I do have a couple of novels I'm working on. One is a legit fantasy novel. It's modern contemporary fantasy about kids with wishes. And I've only written the first couple of chapters, so I can't say too much more about it than that. And the other thing that I have completely storyboarded and have a full outline for is a sequel for Greetings for Witness Protection.
Oh, yay! That's so exciting.
Yeah. So again, neither one is under contract. That's a fancy business term, which means that I sort of can take my time writing them. And we'll see if either one of them passes muster in terms of whether or not my agent and editors and things like that are interested in them. So I can't say these will be on the shelves in 2 years or next year or something like that. But I'm working on them, and I always enjoy doing so.
Awesome. Well, we will cross our fingers for you and hope that one day we get to read them. Thank you so much for your time and for this great book and your others. We're just so grateful. Thank you, Jake.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Amanda.
All right, we'll see you again next time for another First Chapter Friday video. Continue reading Greetings from Witness Protection by Jake Burt. Pick up a copy from your school library, purchase one from your favorite local indie bookstore, or grab it via the links in the description box. Don't forget to check out the rest of the First Chapter Friday playlist. I have over 125 amazing middle grade and young adult read aloud videos waiting for you. Thanks so much for visiting my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. I hope to stop back again for more First Chapter Fridays, brain breaks, and other great video content. You can also find more from me at these amazing places. Happy reading!